So let me start with Dr. Gillian Buji, because it's quite interesting that you are a doctor, but you're also a recovered COVID-19 patient. Can you tell us quickly your story? What's your COVID-19 story in a nutshell?
Okay, thank you once again. And then I would want to say a very good evening. It goes like this. I actually came into contact with a by then suspected COVID-19 patient on the ward. That was on the 29th of March 2000. Then on the 30th, I was very fine going about.
Wow. Hello? Okay, we seem to be having a challenge with Dr. Buji. I will bring back shortly. Let me go to James whilst we restore connection with Doc. James, so what's your COVID-19 story then?
Bernard, my story. So the Thursday, I think it was a Thursday that they announced the first couple of cases. That was on the 13th of March. I was out on a Friday evening. Couple of different places I went to in town. By Monday, I had a bit of a cough, a slight cough. I'm not somebody who tends to have coughs. Mm-hmm. And with all the news around, I was cracking jokes here and there. But by the evening, I was also feeling some aches. So I figured, let me call the line. What do you call the line again? The COVID line, basically. So I gave them a shout. Symptoms progressed a bit. By Monday night, I was having a terrible fever. Bad headache, and that continued all through to Tuesday. That was when I pushed the team and I told them, look, this is not something that is very typical, and I imagined it could be malaria, but I told myself, even if it's malaria, it's the sort of malaria that I need to confirm and act on as quickly as possible. So they came, they tested, and they confirmed on Thursday that it was actually COVID. By that time, the symptoms had subsided a little bit, but in a nutshell, I would describe it as a very bad flu or pretty bad malaria. For me, the worst symptoms were headache, bad fever, and fatigue, which lasted for a while, which lasted for a few days. But that's how I would describe the first couple of days of it.
Headache, bad fever, and possibly malaria-like symptoms. How many days did that last?
Well, the intense fever was about 4 days. So 5 days, from Monday to about Saturday, wow. It was ongoing, getting a little better. Chills were there, ups and downs of it. By Thursday, it had eased off a bit, but I was feeling weak. The headaches were still there. The aches were still there, but it was improving. Cough was not too serious. And fortunately for me, I think I was lucky because I didn't have any breathing issues. That was my saving grace. So the rest of it was really just recovering from the fatigue over the course of the next few days after that Saturday. So from Monday to Saturday, had all the symptoms: fever, fatigue, headache. And then by Saturday, the fever had broken. I was still sweating through the nights though. And wow. Dr. Kome was checking on me quite regularly. And he just mentioned to me that, it would take some time. The sweat is basically getting the toxins out of your system. So it was about 10 days, I think about 9 or 10 days of symptoms. After that, things sort of eased off a little bit.
So at what point did you test? Was it so by the time you had tested, did you still have symptoms, or just walk me through the testing thing and when you sort of got to know you were positive? Okay,
so Monday when I had the light cough, I gave them a call. The symptoms weren't really that many, so they were waiting for another follow-up. They said if it progressed, I gave them another call. So on Tuesday, I called. I told them, look, I've had a horrible Monday night. This is the situation. I need to go to the hospital to go and check for malaria, because if it's malaria, I need to act on it. So they came in on Wednesday, took the test, and Thursday, I got a call from Dr. Kome. I had a feeling, I don't know why I had this feeling that it might be that. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Kome just kept me calm. He told me, he cracked a little joke and he told me, you know what, so you are positive for COVID, nothing to stress about. In the sense, you should keep calm. And then I gave them a list of those who I had been in contact with that weekend. And I think that was probably one of the worst parts of it, because, I had seen up to 20, 30 people.
No.
I had to give the names, and I had to call those people myself to let them know ahead so they don't panic. So you call them and you let them know. That's the responsibility. You call them, you let them know this is the situation. But fortunately, nobody got it. All the people were tested and they all came out negative.
Wow.
So that was the process for me, getting tested. Yeah.
That's interesting. Let me come back to Doc. James, I'll come back to you. Thank you for sharing. Dr. Gillian, I believe I have you back on a hopefully better connection. You had just started your story when you went off. So just walk me through again your COVID story.
Okay. So on the 31st, I woke up with severe bodily pains. I had fever, then I had chills. So just like I earlier on said, I inserted a suppository Thymol, and then I was hoping to get better during the day. But still, my symptoms progressed. I felt really, really feverish, and then I wasn't having a thermometer with me by then. So just then, my boss calls to find out how I was doing, because he usually calls to check on me, not because I wasn't well, but he just calls to check on me, especially when he doesn't see me. So when he called, I told him that I was having these symptoms, and then I told him that he actually promised that he would come the following day to come and then see me. So on the first, I had dry cough. And then this time around, I had access to a thermometer. So I took my temperature, and then I recorded 40.4 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
So again, I called my boss, and I told my boss that this was the problem, and that I had started coughing as well. So he actually did come to me. He came with IV Thymol and some antibiotics, IVs, and then it was administered on me. And then I felt a bit, he sat down to chat, and then he left. On the second, the symptoms increased. This time around, I had headaches. So,
oh, Lord. Oh, gosh. Okay, we still have a challenge. Oh, Lord, such a great story. We seem to be having a challenge with the connection. We will certainly work and bring her back. So let me come back to Dr. Gillian. Look, I'm enjoying your story so much. I think my eagerness is affecting your internet. So let me just keep a straight face. So far, you've told me about how you started treatment. You did suppository, it didn't work, and then you were given some meds because your senior doctor calls and realizes you are not at work. So you take the treatment. But at this point, had you tested, or because you're a doctor, you knew?
No, but all this while, the case was still a suspected case of COVID, and then the patient sample was taken. So we're still waiting for the results of the patient. So all this while, we were still not having a confirmed case of a COVID-19 patient. So on the second, as I earlier on indicated, I had headaches adding on to my already existing dry cough, temperature, and then the muscle weakness or muscle pains. So on the third, in the evening around 3, I'm called to the unit to see a patient. On arrival, I'm met with the news that the suspected case sample we took actually came back positive. So I went back again into the office, I changed, and then not telling anybody where I was going, why I didn't come again to see the patient. I just drove home, and that was how my own quarantine started in the house. So when I got home, I called my boss to find out whether he had heard of the news, but my boss did not pick, and it was later on I was told that he was actually in theater. Then I called my other colleagues also to find out how they were doing, and then they didn't heard of the news. They said they were still hanging on in there, but then yes, they heard the news. Then I make another call again to the hospital because I wanted to find out when our samples were going to be taken, because I'd already started exhibiting the signs of the COVID. So the person I actually called made me understand that the samples will be taken on a Monday, and then as for the symptoms I'm exhibiting, most probably it was my mind. So I should just be just be at peace with myself, and then just wait for the samples to be taken. It was a Friday, so I sat down and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so today is a Friday. I'm already exhibiting the signs of the disease, and then we're going to take our samples is going to be taken on a Monday. Okay, so I had no any other option but just to wait till the Monday. But just then I get a call that was the following day. Fourth, I get a call from one of my bosses I went under, who is now in Accra here, Dr. Apia Kubi, Dr. Kujo Apia Kubi, who called, and then he went like, Dr. Kubi. Then I remember my exact words I used. I said, "Pause and koyepa." Then I this time my cough was so bad, so he could hear me like cough excessively. And then the first thing he asked was how we were doing, and then whether our samples were being taken, and then if I actually got in contact with the patient. So all this was yes. And then he asked whether our samples were being taken. I said we are told our samples will be taken on Monday. So he made me understand that he wanted to connect me to our Assistant General Secretary, Dr. Titus Superior, to talk to me. So I said, okay. So just after I hung up, no, that was on the 5th, Dr. Titus called me. And then again, I was coughing. My cough was so bad that the thing was, each time I tried talking, then it aggregates the cough.
The cough.
So he asked whether our samples was taken again. I said, our samples will be taken on the 6th. That was on a Monday. So he said, okay. Then I think he realized I actually needed some psychological support. So he also called Dr. Amma Edmonds to get in touch with me. So she actually called me and then tried to tell me to stay positive and then just to wait for the samples to be taken, and she kept on encouraging me.
Yeah, but just hold on. Being a doctor and going through those symptoms, I'm sure you knew, or how strongly did you suspect you had COVID based on all your knowledge as a doctor?
Okay, so the first sign I had was the high temperature, the bodily weakness, the fever, the chills. Okay. Then the next thing I had was a loss of smell. I had loss of smell on the 6th. So I was just about getting to that. So on the 6th, I was just about eating, and I realized that I couldn't smell the granite soup I was actually about to enjoy.
Wow.
So I stood up, I went to the washroom. I have this liquid soap, which has got this nice strawberry smell. Then I tried washing my hands again, and I couldn't smell anything. Then this time I become a bit alarmed. So I take my perfumes, I tried to smell, I couldn't smell. I take body splash, I tried to smell, I couldn't smell anything. So I just sat on my bed and I was like, okay, what next? I think I have all the signs of the COVID. So just then again, Dr. Apia calls me. It's like, okay, how are you doing? Then I went like, boss, I think in addition to my symptoms, I have loss of smell. I can't smell anything. And then he went quiet for a while, for some seconds, and then he went like, so this is true. That was just his statement. So this is true. So I sat down and then I was thinking to myself, what is boss talking about? And what is true? So he asked, are you able to breathe well? I said, yes, boss. And then he asked again, do you have any sore throat? I said, no, boss. Then he asked whether I had a pulse oximeter with me. I said, no, boss. So he actually advised that I get a pulse oximeter on me, and then try to check my saturation, and then make sure that in case of anything, I get the authorities. I call back again to the hospital and then let them know. So just then, my other boss, who happens to be at the Regional Health Directorate, also calls me every now and then to find out how I was doing. So he also called, and then I told him about my symptoms, and he also asked whether I could whether I could swallow. I said yes. And then he asked whether I was breathing very well. I said yes. And he also went further to ask whether I had any underlying conditions like maybe heart disease or maybe asthma, because I think he also realized that my cough was becoming serious rather than reducing. It was actually getting worse. So the problem I had with, or the torture I went through was to just wait for the results to be out. Okay, so on the 7th, on the 8th, on the 9th, my cough got worse. The surprising thing was that my temperature was normalized, and that was because I had started with azithromycin. I was on vitamin C. I've started with steam inhalation. A lot of my senior colleagues, my father-in-law asked me to start with steam inhalation. and then I was on zinc tablet. I even went a step further by taking cell GBT, like anything just to boost my immune system. I was taking a lot of fluids, and then I was taking tea with lime. Yes. So this was what I was doing, and then I was just very anxious, waiting for the results. So once a while, I would call to find out whether they had heard anything concerning our results, and then when
when did the results come?
Yes. So the results actually came a day before I was airlifted from the region. Wow. So on the 10th, I started desaturating. So I felt I couldn't breathe very well, and it was most probably because of the excessive cough. My cough was just too bad that I would cough for a very long time. But when I lay down quietly with the head poked up, I was able to, like, without talking, then I would be able to most probably not cough for a while. But then when I start to talk, then the cough starts again. So my oxygen level started reducing on the 10th. And then, so when I checked my saturation, it was ranging between 65 to 70 room air. So this time around, my boss at the RHD calls me. And then this time I had sore throat also, mild sore throat, but I could swallow. So I called and then I told him that this was the symptoms I was now having. And then Dr. Titus was in the known, Dr. Ama Edwin was also in the known, and then Dr. Piakupi was also in the known. So my bosses actually advised that I move to the hospital because I was having sore throat and then all that. So my boss at the health directorate actually called me again before I left the house to the hospital. I actually drove myself to the hospital because I just didn't want anyone closer to me. I don't know, one way or the other, I was just positive that I was having the disease. I was just convinced. But the other problem I had was you being told that it's in your head, and I don't know why, but it was like it's not possible. But I felt I was actually having the COVID. So my sister who was with me by then even was like restricted from coming to my room. So everything she would bring would be at the door. I would go take it from there. And then when she was coming closer to the door, she would put on a mask and then all that. So I took my bag, and before I left the room, I get a call again. And then I was told that just to reassure me that my test result had come, and then it was negative. So this time around, again, I became so confused. Okay, so my test is negative. That is a good news. But then, what is all these symptoms I'm having? How do I explain these symptoms I'm having? So that was the other question I was also like thinking about. So I drove myself to the hospital. I was admitted at the female medical ward, and then immediately my saturation again was checked, and this time it was ranging between 75 to 80%, 75 to 85% room air. So before I was put on intranasal oxygen, I was nebulized and then put on intranasal oxygen. So on the 11th, around 4, I get a call from Dr. Anthony Isiatsari, who tried to find out how I was doing. But because my cough was so bad, all what I could manage to tell him was that my results was in and it was negative. So I was being managed now for upper respiratory tract infection. And then, so all what I could hear him also say was, yes, I think your results, your test, your sample would have to be taken again, and then get ready. You will be airlifted to Accra for further management. So get your whoever relative is going to accompany you, and then you'll be airlifted.
I'll hold a story here. I'll take a short break, and then when we come back, you will tell us what happened afterwards. So thank you so much for staying. I just wanted you to speed up the story for me. So Insiasari calls you. He says they'll take another sample. They say you are negative, yet you have all the symptoms, and you're a doctor, so you sort of suspect you have COVID. Just run me through how you actually got the positive test result and how far you got into COVID before you recovered.
Okay. So I was airlifted to Accra, and I was sent straight to the medical IC. So there, some samples were taken, so blood samples were taken. I had a whole lot of investigations going on in there. They had carried out a lot of investigations on me. And then among the investigations they took again was to take the sample again for COVID-19. So in, I think in 3 to 4 days, the results comes in and then I'm told it's positive. So the management continued actually. So I was moved from the medical ICU to reverse unit. But then they had a little bit of a challenge trying to suppress my cough. So because of that, I had to go on a whole lot of medications. And at the point in time, I had panic attacks, and then I had to be put on antidepressants and then stuff like that. At a certain point in time, I had my BP shooting. At a certain point in time, I had my BP dropping. So they actually went through thick and thin just to get me where I am.
So how many days between when you noticed symptoms to when you actually recovered? How many days are we talking about?
It took me 1 month and 3 days. So I started having the symptoms on the 31st, and I was discharged from the hospital on the 2nd of May. So I spent 8 days in the ICU, and then I spent 12 days at the unit, and then the remaining weeks I spent.
Okay.